GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Hey, this is Raven Black, and you're listening to the All Bets Are Off podcast with Robby Vegas.
What's up, rockers, and welcome back to the All Bets Are Off podcast. I'm your host, the rockstar Robby Vegas, and with me, my co-host...
Oh, yeah.
You're like the Kool-Aid Man.
That'd be more like, oh, yeah. No, that's Macho Man. Whatever, they're the same person, kind of.
You still have to say your name.
Macho Man.
Oh, yeah.
Macho Man, Chazzy Stanley.
Well, I gotta tell you
Hey,
this.
y'all, it's Chaz.
You're really gonna like today's sponsor. I think Mike Burns knows them.
Okay.
Yes. So today's episode is brought to you by DB, which is a Scandinavian brand that makes backpacks and bags to help people on the move stay ready for anything. From the streets to the peaks, DB's gear is travel tested by some of the world's best athletes, adventurers, and creators. Over the past decade, DB has designed and developed, released, and refined the best bags in the market. With DB's patented hookup system, you're able to attach smaller products to your backpack, roller, or tote. For people that travel, this is a huge thing.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you're a wrestler, you're an actor, you're a podcast host going to a Monster Mania Con in New Jersey, you gotta have...
I didn't go to one of those.
Oh, that's right. I went to one of those.
Oh.
Yeah, that was great, by the way. But anyways, we're teaming up with DB to exclusively offer our listeners 10% off your next purchase by using the code POD10 or going to the link in our show notes. DB, it's time to move on, time to get going. So that's our sponsor for today, or one of them, because we always have multiple sponsors. But do you want to fill the people in on what exactly we're doing here and explain what it is so that we don't get hate mail saying, like, how could you not include this guy?
Well, we're probably going to get that anyway. Okay, so
That's
what we're doing is, due to scheduling conflicts,
Yes.
some more fun stuff on the way, or it might just happen. Who knows? We did our top 5 each guitarists before.
Yeah.
So this is our top 10 singers / frontmen. Doesn't mean the best.
Right. And when you say 10, 5 each.
5 each, so it could be whatever. But top 5 each, singers / frontmen. Doesn't mean the best, doesn't mean the greatest range, doesn't mean, you know, I would have them sing at Memorial. I'd have them sing at Memorial.
These are our personal
favorites. People that mean a lot to us, people that inspire us.
Right.
You know, we are musicians, and like, you need that. You need that, you know, that kick in the ass sometimes, and the stuff that floors you, and like, that's what this is. And we decided to keep it, you know, towards men.
Yes.
To avoid any, like, confrontations of, like, oh, you chose mostly men or mostly women. So let's just do men right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just do men.
Well, I gotta say, too, you know, I know that some of the people on my list, others will say, well, they're not so great. Well, to me, they are. So I'm not saying that there's not a better singer out there. I'm not saying that there's not a better frontman out there, but they mean the most to me.
Right, and that's what it's about. And it's got to be rock. We did specify that because this is an alleged rock podcast.
Right, allegedly. I do know that you wanted to put Billy Joel on yours, and we had a discrepancy.
That's not true. You're just calling me out because I just saw Billy Joel, and he was really great in concerts.
I'm sure it was good.
He really was.
Sure it was good. And I just came back from New Jersey, where I was at Monster Mania 46.
I like your spray tan.
Thank you. It was 97 degrees.
Oh.
Yeah.
But it was 90 here, so.
Yes. Met a lot of cool people. Kane Hodder, Danielle Harris, Bill Mosley, Matthew Lillard, and Skeet Ulrich. So, super cool.
That's awesome. You did invite me, but I had prior engagements.
Billy Joel.
Which was a 2-year in the making event.
Yes, it was.
Thanks to COVID. I got tickets for that Christmas of 2019.
Yes.
Ages ago.
Yes. So, do we dig right into our lists here?
You're the boss.
So we're not going by any eras or anything, just to
just
let people know. It's just rock in general. But, yeah, so why don't you kick it off with your number 5? We'll bounce back. By the way, I don't think we're going to have any overlaps.
Possibly not.
I don't think so.
I mean, I kind of know, I think, what's on your list, so maybe not.
Yeah.
But there might be one or two that could possibility. So I'm going to start off with a friend, the brother of your fellow wrestler. I'm going with Michael Sweet.
Wow. Okay. So I guess we should have had Rob Sweet on to discuss why Michael is so good. I know he's a great frontman, but why did you specifically pick him?
Frontman, like, let's just listen to that guy sing.
Yeah.
There's not many people that can sing higher than Michael Sweet, first of all. But not a falsetto high, a full throat high. And, like, just, like, he's got a lot of power in his voice. Now, granted, as I've always said about Stryper, they might be my favorite band in the world if their corniness wasn't so damn corny.
The love songs.
They don't even write power ballads. They write ballads.
Yes.
You know, they go from Iron Maiden sounding music to Styx.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
It's
I
rough.
totally agree.
But he sounds fantastic in those songs, too.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael Sweet's range is untouchable almost.
Yeah, no, I agree. And somehow he's managed to keep it over the years. He might even sound better now than he did before.
I don't know if he sounds better. He definitely sounds almost as good. And their music, they're putting out more music than ever. He's putting out more music than ever.
Sunbound with Tracy Guns, Sweet and Lynch.
Yeah.
You know, of course, the new Stryper, plus the just Michael Sweet albums.
Yeah. Every year he's probably put out an album for like the last 7-8 years.
Yeah.
Between all of his side projects and Stryper. And he sounds fantastic.
Also, side note, just to cut you off real quick, if you guys hear the air conditioner, we refuse to turn it off. Yeah. It's way too hot in here. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, y'all can handle it. You know what it is? It's pretty hot in here. I feel like I'm going to hell with the... Okay, sorry, I tried. I tried.
That was almost a segue.
I tried. No, if we did that first, it would have been the segue. But how can you argue? You can't argue Michael Sweet.
No, not at all.
This, and, like, he's on my list. Like, he's at that 5th spot, so that could be up and down. You know, there's somebody else that you probably thought was on my list that didn't make it. That could be interchangeable.
Well, Michael Sweet was almost on my list, but spoiler alert, he is not. Okay. But it was a contender. Yeah. Just going to throw that out
just
there.
Like, yeah, you know, you guys know Stryper out there. If you don't, just listen to Hell with the Devil.
Yeah.
Listen to In God We Trust.
Listen to anything they've come out with in the last 5 years.
Listen to anything they came out with in the last 40 years.
Yeah, that too.
Like,
but, I mean, just to drive the point home of how good he still is, everything that's still coming out is amazing.
He doesn't sound any different.
I think his voice might even be a little stronger, but that's just me.
Sure, there might be some juicing up in the studio, but frankly, there might have been back then.
Yeah, for sure.
So who even knows? Like, he's too good and sings too high to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's true. Like, it's tough. Like, I can't hit his notes. You can't hit his notes. No. I'm just calling you out.
No, I can't.
There's no way, and I can't do it.
I don't even try.
I'll be like, if I was in a Stryper cover band, I don't know what I'd do because he's a great guitar player, too.
Yeah.
And, like, I could probably do his rhythms and sing his lower parts.
Yeah, right.
So I'd be like Vince Neil.
Yeah, you let the crowd do that.
I'd be like, here comes the high part. All right. God bless you all. You see what I did there?
I did. The people didn't see it, but I saw it.
So Michael Sweet, easy add to my list.
Okay. Well, my number 5 might even surprise you because it's my number 5 and not higher. Mm-hmm. But it's Bret Michaels. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that.
So, Bret is not like one of those high-pitched 80s singers like everybody else was back then. But because of that, he's been able to keep his voice.
Right.
And not sound any different. But he's also just like a genuinely great frontman.
Well, here's the thing about Bret Hart, too. We do this all the time.
Every time.
Bret Michaels, too, is like, you say he's not a high singer, but he's not a low singer.
No, he's not.
So it's weird.
Yeah, there's certain songs that I feel when he does sing them, I'm like, ooh, that note's a little tough. Not that, like, you know, saying, like, you or I can't get it, but it's like, oh, that's a little tough.
It's not like he's out there, like, sing low either. So he's just got, like, a smart ranged voice, I guess.
And he knows, like, where to put his inflections. He's a great songwriter. I like his lyrics. I like his solo albums. And he is a really good frontman. Mm. If you go see Poison, it's entertaining. It's a party. He makes everybody feel like they're a part of the show. And that's something that a frontman should be able to do. But unfortunately, we've both seen hundreds of concerts in our life. Not every frontman can do that. Mm-hmm. But Bret can do that. Mm-hmm. And he's very inspiring when he does. And he's genuinely a great guy off the stage. And I think that's left such an impact on me that I'm like, how could you not like this guy? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, he's so genuine and also very talented.
Yeah.
You know?
And a legit frontman where Michael Sweet for me is but isn't. Like, he plays guitar every time, and he doesn't run around and go crazy, but you get that from Bret Michaels.
You do.
And you get, like, Bret Michaels does play guitar, and he always has a spotlight with the acoustic and does what he has to do. And, you know, he also plays along with both of our picks in the top 5 of greatest guitarists.
Yes, he does.
And those two are just a dynamic duo.
They really are.
Because friend of the show, Richie Katzen, as much as, like, he's a great guitar player and a great songwriter, it just didn't mesh as well.
He did not. When he was with Poison, there was something missing. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that they didn't have good songs, because they did. Mm-hmm. But it just wasn't the same. Because Poison needs those 4 guys. Mm-hmm. It's something about the 4 of them together.
It's something to believe in.
It's something to believe in. It just makes you want to open up and say, ah.
Oh, boy, that's tough.
Yeah, it's just all of their flesh and blood together.
makes me cry tough. All right, with all these damn puns, we're talking about Bret Michaels' heart here, not...
Yes, yeah. But no, he really is a super talented guy, and he is a fun frontman to see live. And if anybody,
Always.
And if you enjoy Poison and you haven't seen them, you're missing out. I think you would like them even more if you went to a show.
He's pushing, 40 years, 35, 40 years? He looks the same.
He does look the same.
Guy looks great. He's in his, 50s, 60s?
Yeah, he's in his 50s.
He's in his 50s right now? And then,
still got abs.
He looks great. If you just think of other people when they're in the 50s,
I know.
they look like dudes in their 50s.
Yeah. I know. And, he's still going strong, and he's still one of the most popular faces from that era to where he's still relevant now.
He was the only relevant face for a while.
For a long time, yeah. With Rock of Love and Rock of Love Bus and that RV show that he had. And, he owns that pet line for PetSmart. And then he just last month released those 2 Funko Pops, the Bret Michaels Funkos. He is...
Was he wearing a hat in both of them?
Just one.
Okay.
And that's the variant. It's hard to find.
Okay.
I have it.
Okay, Mike Bird.
But I'll tell you, it came from Scandinavia. But honestly, I think his relevance through the years speaks for how good he really is. So
yeah, for sure. And he's also, I just did a little fact check. He's a little older than we thought. He's 58.
Is he really? I was going to say 55. So I guess
guy looks fantastic.
He does. Well, I guess we're going to roll on to your number 4.
Roll on to my number 4. So my number 4 is someone that's a little more contemporary. Now, that's like an old guy saying thing is temporary, because really his first album probably came out 16 years ago. So it's not necessarily temporary.
I'm curious.
Contemporary, but for our, listeners, all us old guys, that's contemporary. And he's a singer of a very popular, famous rock band, and he just doesn't get enough credit, and that's Brent Smith from Shinedown.
Really?
That guy can just
So he's a great singer.
Oh my God, that guy is a fantastic singer. And I don't necessarily say love Shinedown anymore.
You did.
I did. For the first album. The first 2 albums were I was hooked. And then the third one where they broke and got famous, maybe I did a little bit of a hipsterness and then got away from it. But his voice is just, it's hard to beat. It's hard to argue. That first album is more of it's on the end of nu metal.
Yeah.
A little bit,
yeah.
And he's still got his acoustic stuff on there. And then the next album, they started to gain popularity and had a little more classic rock song. And then they took off. But he's done piano ballads like Follow You Down, which is just him sitting there at the piano.
Cover a Simple Man.
To cover Simple Man, pushed me into being a singer further than a lot of people, because it was so good, and it was something I could do. And it made me realize I don't know, it's hard to explain. When he sang Simple Man, I kind of felt like he was doing it the way I did it. And then when I saw everybody else's reaction about how much they loved his version of it, made me more confident that I'm on the right path with things like that.
Yeah, right. I think that's a good pick, and I remember you being really into them. I've never actually seen them live. Well, I've seen just the bass player. He was, for whatever reason, filling in on a show with Fuel. But I've never seen Shinedown.
Did singer Fuel make your list?
He did not.
Okay.
He did not.
What is his name?
I can't remember.
Okay.
Wasn't it Brett something?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But he's such a... He really... His voice does something to me. Even if it's a song I don't like.
Yeah.
Because they're on, the Sirius radio all the time. And, a song will come on, I'm meh on. But then there's just a part in there where I'm damn it.
Yeah, he's good.
He's really soulful. And he can hit high notes. And he's got power. And just, if you want to, hear him just go off, you guys need to look at Follow You Down, the piano song, just him on a piano. That's where you get your soulfulness.
Yeah.
And in the past 6 years or so, there was a really good song called How Do You Love, and it was just slower, not slower rock, but not as hard rock.
Yeah.
But the older stuff, Leave a Whisper, stuff on that album, is pretty damn heavy, and his voice just soars, man. And that's why he's in my top 5 easy. He's not one that would be replaced.
I could see that pick for you.
Yeah.
I could see that pick for you. So my number 4 is the one that you probably wouldn't think of.
Okay.
And it's random, but it's not random if you really consider who you're talking to right now. Okay. So my number 4 is Mike Tramp. Okay. So
all of a sudden you're going to have a White Lion fan page.
This is the White Lion podcast.
Apparently it is.
So I think if you ask me who one of the most underrated frontmen are, I would pick Mike Tran, because he's very high energy. He's a great singer. He's great with the crowd, like we were saying with Bret Michaels. He can command a crowd, and these two could be interchangeable, by the way. Bret could take this spot easily. But, like, at present moment, Mike Tramp is a little higher just because, like, going back and watching the things that he does, I'm just like, why was this guy not the next big thing? And I think it's because of the year that they broke.
Yeah, they're late.
They were late.
Late to the party.
Because, like we were talking about with guitar players, my number one was Vito Bratta. I mean, same deal. Why was this guy not the next big guitar god? Well, that's because White Lion broke so late into the 80s that grunge was starting to take over. I think the same thing happened to Mike Tramp. I, honest to God, think that he's up there with, like, some of the greatest singers, range-wise, but also...
He's got a big range.
Yeah.
He's definitely a better singer than Bret.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely a better singer than Bret. Is he a better frontman? I don't know, but I think it's close. I really do.
So he takes the edge in that case.
He might.
He did.
Well, he did in my list.
It's the definitive
now,
list.
Tomorrow, if I go to a Poison concert, I might flop
I was going to say, there could be some recency bias for you, because you've seen Bret Michaels live
15 times.
Right. And Mike Tramp live zero, right?
Zero.
Right?
I watch his live stuff. I don't. Right. I've never been to.
But you know that's not the same.
It's not. It's not. But he's so good and commands the crowd, and his stage raps are good, and he's all over the place. He's drenched in sweat because he's running back and forth for 45 minutes. Like, that's a good frontman.
That happens to Vince Neil too.
I don't want to talk about it. So that was my my underrated pick.
I'm not actually surprised he's on there. Like I told you, you're all of a sudden a White Lion wear.
Yeah, it was a weird thing though, because I grew up loving White Lion, but then somewhere within like the last 3 years, they became like one of my absolute favorites. Yeah. Like I always had Pride, but now I have everything, and I'm like, this guy was great always. And like I know they got like some notoriety again when Wayne's World came out because they were on the soundtrack and all that stuff. But I mean, before that, those guys were on the rise, and then all of a sudden it just stopped.
I've tried to delve into them more, and I don't have a problem with them, and I don't hate them, and I just have never felt the urge to really run back, other than listening to Vito.
Well, I also, within the last maybe 10 years, I got super into Mike Tramp's solo stuff, because he's got like 10 solo albums.
Oh, jeez.
And they're really good.
That's more than Bret, right?
Yeah, and he's a great songwriter. And like lyrically, I'm not obviously Vito was the guitar player, but like lyrically, I really like what he does. And some of his songs have just like these deep meanings that you just can't help but get sucked into when you're listening to his music. And I think that helps him make my list also.
I'm not that surprised he's on your list, because it's just that's what you're into lately.
Yeah.
Like, I knew your list would be pretty 80s heavy, so it's 100% 80s heavy right now.
It is right now.
And granted, mine would have been too. I didn't purposely put the guy from Shinedown in there. He is one of them, but I wanted to make sure I had a little other representation. But you, like you said, he's one of my top guys.
Yeah.
So it's just like, that's what it was. So Mike Tramp, yeah, good for you, Mike Tramp. We're waiting for you to be the official sponsor of the All Bets Are Off podcast with Robby Vegas featuring Chaz Stanley.
And also, can we also say that we're still waiting for the reschedule, because he was supposed to come here before COVID and it got shut down.
That's right.
So, anyways, give me your number 3.
Well, my number 3 could be considered an 80s guy, but technically he came out in the late 60s, and it's probably not a surprise to you. I think he might have the greatest voice in heavy metal history, and it's Ronnie James Dio.
Nice. That's a good pick.
That's
a good pick.
I mean, my scale list I put down of like what they meant to me and everything, but Ronnie James Dio, like I said, could be the greatest heavy metal voice of all time. Some people want to say Rob Halford. It's fine, but Dio's better.
Yeah.
He's got more power. He's got way more power. And talk about frontman. The dude like plays every show like he's like in a play.
Yeah.
You know? And,
yes.
And one of my greatest regrets is I never got to see Ronnie James Dio live in any capacity. He came with Black Sabbath like a couple years before he passed, and I didn't go.
Wow.
And it's kind of like, it's a big regret of mine.
Yeah.
I remember like when I stole all my brother's old records, and he had Holy Diver, and I just fell in love with that myself.
Remember when I sold my Dio shirt off your back?
It was a great shirt.
It was the Holy Diver shirt.
Yeah, it's a great shirt.
Yeah.
It's a great album.
You were like, bring me a shirt because I'm at the water park and we're going to this concert, and I brought the shirt, and somebody was like, I'll give you $50 for that shirt. I was like, take off that shirt and give him the shirt.
Well, because that's how great Dio is, and I feel like he's getting his due more and more now.
I think so.
He really is, and his voice speaks to itself. Now, I mentioned on the greatest love songs or ballads, whatever we did, that his song, As Long As It's Not About Love, vocally is still incredible. And that's old man Dio.
Yeah.
That's from like 2005.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for something to listen to that really shows his range, I'm sure you know Holy Diver. But look at Don't Talk to Strangers. Fantastic.
I love just Last in Line.
I was going to say that's the next one.
Yeah. Like, I'll listen to that song anytime. Like,
what vocals in that song?
Yeah.
And there's a cool cover of that by Tenacious D. I don't know if you've ever heard it.
I don't think I have.
Well, they put out an album called This Is Your Life or something. It's just a Dio tribute album.
Oh, cool.
Metallica's on it. Corey Taylor's on it. Hailstorm's on it.
Really?
Hailstorm goes straight through the heart. It's fantastic.
Oh, wow. She's a great singer.
Yeah, she's a great singer. She would probably be on the top women's frontman list.
Hey, maybe we'll do that.
Yeah. And then, but Tenacious D does a cover of Last in Line. Now, it's acoustic.
Oh, yeah.
But it's hard at the same time. And of course, it gets a little goofy, but they don't go goofy. Because Jack Black sings really well, too.
He does, and he's a huge heavy metal fan,
Yeah,
so he
it's a
likes to
big
do
deal.
it justice, yeah.
And the Last in Line, straight through the heart, Don't Talk to Strangers, but of course, As Long As It's Not About Love. That really, for me, shows Dio's range and how great and how, like, you just think of him being, like, kind of a barker for, like, heavy metal music. But, man, that guy could have been a crooner if he wanted to.
I know. And he had a larger-than-life personality, so you didn't even realize that he was a small guy.
He's, like, 5 foot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's comparative, I think, nowadays to Sully Erna.
Yeah, right.
Sully Erna's a tiny little guy.
Yes.
He's just such a big personality.
You've seen him a bunch.
I have seen Godsmack. I mean, not, like, as much as Kiss or anything, but probably 10 times.
I'd throw Sully out there as an honorable mention for me.
Yeah, would you?
Yeah.
I wouldn't put him in my top singer. He's a great frontman.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
We're talking frontman in general.
Tough.
So.
It's singer slash.
Singer/frontman.
But it's tough. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
He's a great frontman. Because Sully, we're getting on a tangent, but Sully does, like, the drum solos.
Yes.
He plays guitar.
Yes.
He does, like, the conga and marimba
He's all over
sections.
the place.
He's so cool. You know, reminds me of a young myself.
Of a young yourself?
That's what I wish I did.
Yeah, right.
But, like, that's Sully. So Sully, but we're talking about Dio.
Yes.
And I know you like Dio,
I do.
too.
I do.
I feel like I'm hogging all the spotlight on Dio.
No. I mean, I couldn't have said anything opposite or to add to what you're saying because he's just so fucking good. And like I said, Last in Line is probably my favorite Dio song. Just me personally. I don't know what it is, but that song gives me goosebumps. Like every time I hear it, I'm like, oh my god.
His voice gets that song.
Yeah.
The riff.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing special.
Yeah.
It's just the way he delivers those. We're off to the witch.
Right,
Like, he's
exactly.
just so into it. Like,
Exactly.
He doesn't take a night off.
No.
In the studio.
No, he doesn't. And like you could say too, like, yeah, studio magic, but it's not.
No.
That's Dio.
Mm-mm.
So some guys don't need that shit.
No. That guy brought it. Like, Dio replaced. Dio started a band with Richie Blackmore after he leaves Deep Purple.
Yeah.
And then handpicked to replace Ozzy Osbourne in Black Sabbath. Like, that's big shoes to fill. And he freaking filled them. Because Rainbow has their hits and are popular. And you don't see many people shit-talking the Dio era of Black Sabbath.
No.
Ever.
Nope.
Because when he brought with, the Black Sabbath with The Mob Rules and Heaven and Hell and all that stuff, like, I mean, people kind of classify that as its own separate era, like, of course, but it's like its own band,
yes.
and they still love it.
Yes.
Because look at how people reacted from Dave to Sammy Hagar.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of people like it, but a lot of people shit on it.
Yeah.
You don't hear that with Ozzy to Dio.
No, you don't.
You don't hear that.
You hear that Black Sabbath had two legendary singers. That's what you hear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's true.
Yeah.
And, I mean, granted, so did Van Halen.
They did.
But, like, it seems like Dio's, like, universally loved just on a lower level. Like, Dio over Ozzy all day, every day.
Oh, yeah.
I still might take Sabbath with Ozzy over the Dio stuff, but Dio solo over Ozzy.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, like, yes to that, because Sabbath and Ozzy are just, that's the thing. You know what I mean?
He only had 3 albums technically with Dio, but that in the 80s, he had those 2 albums,
right.
That was it. But that was the best thing, because then he went on his own.
Well, my number 3 pick also has quite a bit of range. Also is somebody that we've both seen. I don't know if you've seen him more than I have. I only saw him one time. But it's Janie Lane. And Janie Lane is one of the greatest frontmen, and he should never be forgotten for that.
Absolutely.
This guy can sing, he can write, he can perform, and he was so close to being untouchable. The last big tour of the hair metal era was Warrant. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking like headlining huge arenas for 2 straight years. 2 straight years with Firehouse and Trickster on the Blood, Sweat, and Beers tour. And, I love Firehouse and Trickster, but Warrant was
Nobody
the
loves
ticket.
Trickster.
That's true. I love a few Trickster songs, but
It was a joke, Steve.
it was just a joke.
I'll call you later.
I know you jam with Joey Casada, and he's a friend of the show. So. Listen, Janie Lane, though, like, he really was almost untouchable there at the end of the 80s. Like, if the grunge movement didn't come in, I think Warrant would have overtaken a lot of bands.
I think if that... I know I'm a whole year and a half older than you, but it might make a difference. But I have, even though it was like 4 or 5, like, Warren was big, and like, I actually remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember them being a thing, and I remember them being big. And like, to me, at that point in early 90s, could have been 91-ish, they were like the biggest band in the world to me. Even though, like, well, maybe Poison was, but still, like, Warrant was a big deal then. And like, I loved Wait for the Cherry Pie video to come on. Granted, I was a little boy, and the video was what it was, but maybe that had something to do with it. But it was just a song I always liked. But they were a big deal, and you're right, they are forgotten about. All you're talking about is Frontman here. Janie Lane can sing, bro.
Oh my God, Janie Lane's range. Okay, so one of my favorite like high notes that Janie could hit is in Sometimes She Cries.
That's what I was going to say.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's probably like, I don't know if that's what did it for me, because I've always liked Janie, but I specifically remember hearing that note. I don't even remember when or why, because I always liked that song, but just going like, oh my God. Like, this guy just belts
Are you
out
talking about the bridge or the last chorus?
the very last,
Okay.
the highest
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know, his voice is so like clean, it's smooth, and when he wants to go high, it's still clean and smooth.
Yeah.
And I don't know, he's just got some golden pipes.
He makes it sound effortless.
He does.
He really does. And like, we learned that, I think people take it for granted, but we learned that as singers, just even trying to do, like, I Saw Red acoustic and be like, well, where's my capo?
Right.
I need to fix this.
Right.
Because this is way higher than I imagined it to be.
And there's always a spot in all of his songs where it's like that, where you can sing the song and then it gets to that one part and you're done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like when we do it, well, I'll call us out, when we do Heaven, we don't go the key change.
Nope.
We don't.
Nope.
We give up.
Yeah, because we can't match Janie. And like, I like his solo album, Hooked. It was really good. His other band, Saints of the Underground, I really enjoyed that. And that was later in his career, right before he passed, that he was recording that. And he was still good. He was still a good songwriter. Granted, when we saw him in 2001, that was 10 years after Cherry Pie, which is weird to say because, it wasn't really that long after that those guys started coming back. But, like, I thought he sounded great. I remember thinking, like, wow, Warrant sounds really good. And they were the second band. They came after Quiet Riot. Yeah. And, oh my God, like, I remember that day even thinking Jane was
Cinderella was on that show, right?
Yeah, it was Quiet Riot, Warrant, Cinderella, and then Poison in that order.
Actually, because in my head, Warrant was so big to me, I was shocked that they weren't the second bill.
I remember you saying that.
I really was, because they were so big to me. And still to this day, I think I think Warrant's bigger than Cinderella.
I do too, and
so I don't know why that was like that.
Janie, well, first I want to agree with you that I remember the Cherry Pie video being huge, because I remember sitting on the floor watching it on MTV, even like later, because it was Cherry Pie would come on, and right after it was always I Just Wanna from Kiss, and I remember seeing those two videos were always like back to back. And I don't know why I remember that.
Was it on a videotape that you recorded?
No. I was watching MTV, and because sometimes they played music videos. But Janie, at one point, do you remember their song "Hole in My Wall"? Mm-hmm. It was a very grungy type song because he was kind of going along with the times a little bit.
You had to,
yeah. But even then, that was a great song.
"Hole in My Wall" was a great song. What is that Doggy Dog album? Right?
Yes,
it's actually a good album.
It is.
It is kind of like forgotten.
Is.
They think of "Dirty Rotten Filthy Stinking Rich" and "Cherry Pie."
Yes,
and yes, Doggy Dog's different, but it's got some good hits on it. Not hits, but good songs on it. And
yes,
obviously because Janie Lane's a part of it.
Yes.
And like what I've kind of like when I've delved into him and looked at, Janie Lane is the band.
Yeah.
Like he writes the music, and like sometimes those guys that are listed don't even play on those songs. He gets other people to do it because he's the mastermind of it. So it's not like it's not like it was a boy band put together, which some of these like 80s bands were probably just like boy bands put together.
Right.
You're a good looking guy, you're a good like Janie, like this is my band, I'm writing the music, like let's do this. And I've seen live performances of him from the early 90s. The dude held a crowd like crazy.
Oh yeah.
He looked fantastic.
Yep.
But he's got a bad, filthy mouth.
He does. He does. You know, I have a Warrant DVD called They Came From Hollywood, and it's got live performances on it from the Blood, Sweat, and Beers and, like, some overseas stuff. And he really was just so, like... And he looked like a rock star. Yeah. Like, when Janie walked onto the stage, you were like, that guy's a fucking rock star.
Even different, because that stuff in the 90s... They don't look that glam, because the 90s, they turned down. He's sitting there with just, like, a hat on, long hair, but they looked different, like...
I don't know if it was his natural charisma or...
He definitely had it.
Yeah,
just look at his eyes. He's got it.
Right. But then, like you said, they weren't super glammed out, but they also, like... It was a little bit glam, but, you know, it was a lot of just, like, black leather and just, like, biker jackets and just... Or, like you said, he'd throw on a fucking baseball hat, and you were still like, that guy's a fucking rock star.
Right.
Just something about him.
You know, it's very, I guess, comparable to the times where, I guess, it could have went either way, and it went this way, but... They could have been Guns N' Roses.
For sure.
And why weren't they?
For sure.
Because they were a little older, right? They came out just before.
Yes, they did.
It feels like. And they were a little more in the glammy time.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like, or maybe it wasn't just before, but they, like, if you compare their first videos to Guns N' Roses, they're a little more of that glammy
Yes,
side.
but Warrant was for a little bit trying to break, because Warrant was a band before they had Janie. And then when Janie joined, that's when everything came together, because, like I said, he's a fucking star.
Yeah.
He is a star.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that he passed away.
It's just like Axl Rose. Axl Rose is a star.
Yes, he is.
But Janie Lane's a much better singer.
I think so, too.
I really do think so.
It's more crisp and clean and clear.
I have developed more of a like to Axl Rose over these past, 5 years, and you know I used to hate the guy.
Yeah.
And then it was one of those instances where it's like, if he's so bad, sing it. And then I tried to sing it, and I'm like, this bastard, right? So it made me learn from it, but you're right. I feel, and I have this argument with AC/DC, and it's funny because that's where Axl Rose went. But it's funny that he went to AC/DC, and when I consider him the same, where it almost feels like they're making a parody of rock and roll music. And like they're doing like a voice.
Yeah.
And it's like, Brian Johnson sings like this. And it's like, it just sounds like he's making fun of it. But you know what? That's his voice.
It is his voice,
Axl Rose has got his voice.
And I mean, Tom Kiefer sings the same way.
You're right, yeah.
But also Tom Kiefer, when he doesn't sing like that, still sounds great.
You're right. But Janie, I think, could have been the next big rock star and not Axl.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's a shame it didn't go the other way.
You know, saying out loud that we saw Warrant only 10 years after Cherry Pie really made me realize that we kind of saw him when he was still a young dude doing this thing.
We probably thought he was old as fuck.
We probably did.
He's probably 38.
I remember going to that show thinking, we're about to see all these older bands that we love, but looking back, in 2001, they were still kind of, like, fresh. Like, Poison was just coming out with Hollyweird. And
think about it like this: we saw them 10 years after Cherry Pie. You said, right?
Yeah.
That was 20 years ago.
Yes.
So, like,
so those guys were in their 30s.
He was born in 1964, so he'd have been 37.
Yeah. See, like, he was still a younger dude.
Yeah, he was only 37. That's like 3 years younger than you right now.
Older.
If you think about it, though, that's 2 years younger than I am right now.
2 years older, you mean?
2 years older than I am right now. So just think about, like, what we thought of them.
I know.
Like, we thought they were older.
Well, think about it.
16-year-olds think of us like that?
Probably.
Oh, my God.
I mean, think about it. We were 13, 14 years old at the time, and we thought we were seeing these older fucking, like, classic bands, but they really hadn't been gone, per se, that long. It didn't take long for the 80s music to come back. You know, like, Poison never really went away.
But that's the crazy thing is, like you said, I mean, he was only 37. They were only gone for 10 years. Like, the guys from Disturbed are older than that right now.
And they're still going, right?
And, like, no one thinks of them like they're ancient. So it's weird. It was a perception.
It was.
And I don't think it's anything
It's because it died out because of grunge, and it just went so fast.
And I think it's because the aesthetics of it was so of a time.
Yes.
That you couldn't get over it.
Yeah. But I remember they opened up with Down Boys, and he rocked. And I was like, he still sounds good. And, like, looking back on it now, how stupid of me to say that, because it was only 10 years prior.
Right.
But, like, you know.
Welcome to the Janie Lane cast, everybody.
Yeah, we went off on that one.
That was good. I liked it.
Who's your number 2?
My number 2 is more contemporary artist.
Really?
Somebody I've talked about before in this podcast. It's a big inspiration to me. A little more rah than all you guys would prefer.
Yeah.
Any idea who I'm speaking of?
Maybe.
Well, who's your guess?
Are we talking about Avenged Sevenfold right now? Oh, okay.
We're talking about Howard Jones from Killswitch Engage.
Oh, okay.
So easily, like, as y'all, well, maybe y'all don't know because I wouldn't talk 80s, but I have a big metal background as well. And I was in the metal scene and all this stuff for a long time. And easily, I think my favorite, I mean, I would say the greatest, but my favorite of that scene, that heavy metal, more screamy, singy scene, Howard Jones from Killswitch Engage. The man's voice, he can scream. Screaming's the easy part. I'll say that to this day. It doesn't matter. Screaming's easy. Anyone can scream. The singing part's the hard part. And being able to do both simultaneously is like the trick. You know, a lot of people can pull it off, but they just can't pull it off at the level Howard Jones has. And it's just, his voice soars. It soars. It fills up the room. And it pulls emotions out of me, especially when I was a teenager. Because I got into him a little older. I was almost like 19, 20 by the time I got into them.
Yeah.
So, like, it wasn't just like a kid thing. And, like, when you're 19, 20, you don't know your emotions. You're trying to figure that stuff out. Howard Jones pulled that stuff out of me and made me realize that there is room for still metal vocalists. And if you listen to Howard Jones, he loves Michael Sweet. He loves 80s metal. They have that sick cover of Holy Diver from Dio.
Yeah. Which
he just rips because he's got that voice. Because he incorporated that into the metalcore scene, which was like what I was trying to do. So it was just perfect, but he does it better than me.
I had a feeling that some of these guys were going to be on your list, and this is one that I actually forgot about. But you do talk about him all the time, so that was silly of me to yeah. But that's a good pick. He's a solid singer. There's nothing bad you could say about the guy, and it's just really for some of our listeners who aren't into that, just check him out specifically because you may change your mind because he is really fucking talented.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and he's still doing it. He's in a new band called Light the Torch, and they're putting out bangers. Which
you were saying, yeah,
they're really good, and he's still powerful. Now, frontman wise, great frontman. He doesn't play guitar or anything. He runs around. He's always active, always getting the crowd into it. Another thing now that I grow older and I realize, I was like, why did he leave Killswitch Engage? I may have told this story.
You did
I'm so upset, and he left because he was struggling with diabetes.
Yeah,
and I didn't get it at the time, but now that I am struggling with diabetes, I get it now.
Yeah,
and I even have more respect for him and more love for him now than I did before. And he's a little bit older than people realize too. Like when he joined Killswitch, he was already in his 30s.
Okay,
so he was a little bit older than people realize, but. So that's why he has that 80s background.
Yeah.
He's been on a friend of the show, Chris Jericho's podcast several times.
Yes,
he brings him on for because he's a big Christian metal guy.
Yes, he loves Stryper.
He loves Stryper.
Yeah.
And I think it shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really do think it shows because he's just got that voice, man.
And that was your number 2, right?
Literally, that was my number 2. And and that's the truth. That's not me trying to make something out of nothing or make headlines when everybody, talks about us. I was just trying. I was looking up right now. Right now, he's 51.
Okay, so
he's 6 years younger than Janie Lane.
Right.
Think about that. So when he joins the band in 2005 or whatever, he's about what Janie Lane was when we saw him.
Yes.
And nobody thinks Howard Jones is an old ass man.
Right.
It's just that
You're right. It was because the 80s was such a staple of fashion and makeup and clothes and music and it was a very specific sound and look.
Yeah.
And when that died out, people just called it old.
Yep.
Even though some of those guys really weren't.
Right. So just please give Howard Jones a chance, guys. Don't be old school metal guys that won't get off their high horse because something's a little more modern. Give it a chance.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then my next pick won't be a hit either. Because my next pick is Wednesday 13.
Oh.
Yeah, he's number 2, which could swap with Janie Lane depending on the day.
Not surprising, by the way.
Yeah, no, not surprising. But I think Wednesday is underrated because he is a musical genius. He's got his horror rock fans in that genre where he can scream, he can sing, and he puts on a hell of a show. He's a great frontman. He's got costume changes.
Definitely a great frontman.
And oh my God, yeah.
I mean, not to belittle anything else you said, but insane frontman.
He holds the crowd in the palm of his hand. The costume changes, the theatrics, the lights, everything. But then, dude's got a country band, and he just sings. But then, dude's got a sleaze rock band where he just sings rock and roll. Do you know anybody else doing all of that right now? Because I don't.
Country music superstar Eric.
But you know what I'm saying, though? Wednesday's very well-rounded, and his fans might know that, but other people may not. That's
not even true, because you've taught me that.
That's true.
But you're a bigger fan than me, but I was always a fan.
Right, that's true. But, I mean, I've seen him play the acoustic gigs. I've seen him play the metal shows. And, I never got a chance to see the Murder Dolls, but, oh my God, Wednesday is right now in 2021 better than he's ever been, and I think he is the ultimate frontman now. Like, my opinion. And he keeps getting more popular by the year. And I think that's great because he's been around forever.
He deserves it.
He does deserve it. I mean, when did the Murder Dolls break? In the late 90s?
Like 01.
01?
Or 20 years.
And he was, before that, like, he started, you know, doing his thing with Maniac Spider Trash and the Frankenstein Drag Queens in, like, 93. So the dude to be, in 2021, being the ultimate frontman that he is, I think is super impressive. So,
you know, I've always said that he should have been the face of horror rock, not Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
And I still hold that to this.
You've said that on this podcast many times, that he does it better.
He does it better.
I think he does too.
He's more, oh God, the Rob Zombie marks are going to be after me.
I know.
Oh boy. Remember, folks, that's Chazz, ABAO. That's Chazz, ABAO. You can come at me with your hate tweets, but just, he's more creative than Rob Zombie, music-wise.
Yes.
Not to take anything away from Rob Zombie's movies, obviously he's, you know, but like, music-wise, his direction is way more creative than Rob Zombie's. And at times it's heavier, and at times it's more fun.
Yes. I think he embraces more of what the 80s horror genre and the campy cheesiness, but also bloody, gory slasherness is, and somehow encompasses that in his personality and through his music. And it stands out more as like what the horror genre is. But Rob Zombie just got more popular, so people look at him as the face of it.
And Rob Zombie was popular before Wednesday even came out.
He was.
Like 10 years before.
Yeah, like
because of White Zombie.
White Zombie. Yeah.
So, I mean, what Wednesday was playing from behind.
Yes.
You got to remember, White Zombie probably came out in, 89?
Yes.
So Wednesday would have been like 13.
Right.
So obviously he looked up to him.
Yeah, of course.
So,
I mean, Alice Cooper and Zombie and everybody came before, which Alice Cooper wasn't even 100% a horror guy. No. But his biggest songs are that genre.
His show is
his show is horror.
His show is better than Rob Zombie. Sorry. Did you think I would hate Rob Zombie? I don't hate him.
Okay, so let's clear one thing up, too, is that I'm a Rob Zombie fan.
Yes, you are.
And you know that.
Yes.
And, like, I love his music, and I love most of his movies. We'll get into the fucking Halloween remake sometime, but not right now. But
you and your remakes, bro.
Well, I'll tell you, like, I just met Bill Moseley over the weekend, and he's one of Rob Zombie's go-to guys.
Yeah, he was in, like, the house of...
yeah. He's in pretty much everything. Yeah. But, you know, he was awesome. Not to go on a tangent about that, but, like, I do like Rob Zombie, and more than you do. And I still think that Wednesday is the face of horror rock, or should have been.
Should have. He should have. Rob Zombie, I know we're talking about Rob Zombie. Rob Zombie has one great album that he tried to make 7 times. That's what happened. That's what happened.
Well, you know, I have his newest album, and I don't hate it.
Take a shot every time he says yeah.
It's not great,
no,
but I don't hate it. You know, like, when he came out with Foxy Foxy, that's when he started losing me. And a lot of people will disagree with me on that. I don't know why. Sure. But, like, for me, I'm like, okay, right around that era, I was like, all right, Rob Zombie's got to do something else, or, like, go back to what he was doing before or something.
And to be fair, to give him his props, and that Wednesday doesn't do this, which maybe makes us like him better, Rob Zombie had a sound and he stuck with it. Like, nobody will ever claim Rob Zombie sold out.
Right.
And did it. You know, right? So it's just like where Wednesday, you can't compare... say Skeletons from Wednesday to, you know, Women and Children Last.
Right.
Can't compare.
You can't.
Like, you can, but you can't.
Even his solo albums are different. So if you listen to Fang Bang, it's very, like, pop punk. But if you listen to Condolences, it's metal.
Yeah.
If you listen to Calling All Corpses, pop punk. But if you listen to Transylvania, it's, like, a harder rock.
Punk.
Yeah. I guess punk would be.
Like punk
but
rock.
then, like, his last 3 albums are just straight up metal albums. You know, Necrophase is a metal album, and Condolences is a metal album. Like, it just depends on what he's feeling at the moment. But then when you go see him live, he plays stuff from every album. So now the whole show's different. And his costume changes. And,
his show's a metal show.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
At least the last 2 times I've seen him.
Well, even the pop punk songs that he does are harder live. And he does incorporate the theatrics of it, you know?
No, I've only seen him a couple of times. Maybe even once. But, like, I kind of don't remember... Does he do Murder Doll stuff?
Yes, he does.
I don't think he did when I saw him.
When I've seen him do Frankenstein Drag Queens and Murder Doll songs, but it's usually select songs. Like, I've seen him do 1976.
I feel but that's not a Murder Doll song, right? Isn't that like his, like,
well,
he's had forever?
Technically it was a remake of a Frankenstein.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
no, maybe you're right.
I don't think he does Murder Doll, which is a shame.
Oh, they're great
because I know he's bigger than the Murder Dolls, but, like, maybe that's just because it means a lot to us, but, like, there's good music on that, and shout out to Joey, rest in peace.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And, like, we know you've already went over it, but, like, you know, what a find. Like, think about that. Joey Jordison coming out of Slipknot at that time, one of the biggest bands in the world.
Yes.
Still one of the biggest bands in the world. But, like, he has a solo project. He handpicked Wednesday out of obscurity. Nobody, you didn't fucking know him. I didn't know him. Out of obscurity to start a band with.
Yes.
So, like, that's good on Wednesday. Joey probably could have rang up Rob Zombie and been like, let me in your band, right? Like, he could have, but he picked Wednesday.
Joey had a pretty all-star lineup there with the first Murdered House crew. And not to take anything away from the second, because, you know, Jack's my buddy, and he was great, and Roman is great. But, like, that first crew was, like, magic in a bottle. Like, I don't know.
Magic in a bottle.
Yeah.
That's
pretty
good. I like
pretty good, right?
Do they sell that? Is that a new perfume?
I mean, I don't know.
Oh, it's that Police song. Magic in a bottle.
You know what it was? Is I think somebody was selling magic in a bottle at the con.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it just stuck in my
Well, you know, and of course, like, now we're on the Joey conversation. Like, it was almost like remember when in 2005 in wrestling, the goddamn wrestling marks. Here they come. They put the mask on Hulk Hogan and tried to pass him off as Mr. America. Right? Yeah. That was not Joey Jordison playing drums on Murdered House.
Oh, it was definitely Joey Jordison.
They totally tried to pass. They tried to Mr. America that. Mm-hmm. Totally, but
oh yeah,
what nice try Wednesday.
Well, I'll tell you though, like, that's what made me backtrack and become such a Wednesday fan, is we love the Murder Dolls, and I was like, wait, he's got like 6 albums already with other bands, and that's how I found Maniac, Spider Trash, and Frankenstein Drag Queens. Right. And then all of a sudden he's pumping out solo albums, and I was like, this guy's amazing.
And then their second album was fantastic too.
Yeah, it was. 10 years after the first one.
And they didn't even fuck around. Literally, I don't think there's anybody on that album but them two.
No,
right?
it's just them. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously the touring band, like I said, was like Jack and
but
whatever.
Like, I think they
did the album. Yeah.
They tried to stop passing off Joey Jordison not playing drums. It's not him playing drums.
I'll tell you though, and they didn't even try and hide it on the second album. The cover just had those two on.
Yep.
They didn't try to have the whole band. But again, the first band was like an all-star lineup though, so that's why they had them all on there.
Right.
You know, you had AC Slade in there, and you had Ben Graves, and like, you know, whatever, Eric Griffin, but everybody else was like
Peter's son?
Yeah.
Peter's hidden son?
Do you want me to tell everybody who your number one is?
Go ahead, tell everyone who my number one is.
Paul Stanley.
What? Paul Stanley, duh. Of course it is. I've said plenty of times.
For the record, I didn't look at your list. I just knew that.
And I know who your number one is.
Yes, you do. You can introduce mine since I did yours.
Right. And it's like, I've said, I think on the podcast, I know I've said it on friend of the show, Joe Polo from Podcast Rock City's podcast, that the greatest rock and roll singer at any point in history is Paul Stanley from 1988 to 1998.
Yeah.
You can't beat him, in my opinion. And if you want to talk about frontman, so like the dude has one of the greatest voices of all time and is widely considered possibly one of top 3 greatest frontmen of all time.
Yes, absolutely.
With the guitar, mind you. Usually when you talk about frontman, people are dropping David Lee Roth, Freddie Mercury, who could easily be on anyone's list, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Just didn't make ours. But like, Paul does this with the guitar, which is a special talent.
Yes, it is.
And people underestimate that.
Yes.
Because for every Paul Stanley, you know, no offense, you know, not to speak of the dead, but for every Paul Stanley, there's Tom Petty.
Yeah.
Who I seen and literally didn't move the whole show.
Right.
Right? And it's like, I'm not speaking bad about it, but that's what it is.
Yeah. No, I get it.
I saw Billy Joel over the weekend. Dude didn't leave the piano the whole time. Right? I mean, it's different.
I mean, Paul Stanley's stage raps, how much he moves, he swings out into the middle of the crowd to perform a song or two at every show. Like, he's so interactive, and he's another guy who's like Bret Michaels in the vein where I was saying how he makes you feel like you're part of the show. Paul does that. Mm-hmm. And Paul invented that, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And Bret got that from Paul, because Bret was a huge Kiss fan.
Of course. All those 80s guys got it from Paul.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a little bit, too, from like, Steven Tyler.
Yeah,
Steven
for sure.
Tyler's a great frontman, too.
He was one of my honorable mentions. So
Steven Tyler's easy an honorable mention. But just Paul, to us, but to me, is just, you can't be beat. He can't be beaten. You won't change my mind.
Paul was one of the first people during live shows that captivated me. You know what I mean? Like, Paul was my first concert, obviously, so of course he captivated me that way.
Right.
But then through the years, as we continued to see Kiss, I never lost that. Like, I would go, and I purposely didn't put him on my list, just so our list would be different.
Well, yeah, obviously, I didn't put your number one on my list either.
For the same reason, yeah.
Might have made my list.
Yeah, but that's, you know, Paul was a serious contender for mine, but I knew we were going to talk about him regardless.
Right.
So it was like, why?
Right.
Let's just get another name in there.
Right. And it's like, because we know each other so well, but it's like, it's plain and simple. I'm sure the millions and millions of listeners of this podcast knew what the fuck I was going to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
It shouldn't be. Mike Burns is shaking his beard right now. And he's like, oh, actually, there's the Scandinavian Kiss tribute band.
Sick, SSIK. But, honestly, Paul deserves to be on everybody's list. And I think even for people who don't like Kiss, which I don't understand you people, but even for
Stop
people...
listening.
Even for people who don't, necessarily like Kiss, I think that you have to admit that he's one of the best frontmen and that he inspired a lot of the frontmen to come. And that's all you could really ask for in a singer frontman in general. Like, he's got a great voice, he inspired a generation, and he captivates the crowd. Like, what else do you need?
There's not a lot of... Okay, I don't want to get myself in trouble, because that could get me into trouble. Trying to word the word. There's a lot of frontmen that are widely considered fantastic frontmen that aren't great singers.
Yeah.
I don't think David Lee Roth's a great singer.
He's not.
Right? Like, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, because they kind of make up for it, I feel, their lack of vocal prowess with the stage show.
Yeah.
It's kind of like wrestling. They might not be a great wrestler, but they're a good talker.
Yeah.
Where
right.
once in a while, you get that one that does both. You get that... Well, Paul Stanley's the trifecta because he plays an instrument, too.
Right.
Where it's like, that's hard to do. Like, as good a singer as Steven Tyler is, as a great frontman as Steven Tyler is, he fucking honks on Bobo. He doesn't, play an instrument. And that's not much. Freddie Mercury plays the piano. He does his stuff. He's
or
right
even,
up there
like you said with Bret Michaels, he'll strum the acoustic, he'll play the electric, he pulls out the harmonica.
But it's just different because Bret Michaels doesn't do it like Paul.
Well, Paul does it the whole show.
Yeah, 2 songs.
Yeah, right.
The show. So it's like, Paul... you can even say Tom Kiefer, but still Paul's on a different level.
Yes.
And Michael Sweet as well. But
yes.
Michael Sweet can't touch Paul Stanley with frontman.
I think Tom Kiefer, by the way, is an honorable mention. But yes, absolutely. I think
they still can't touch Paul.
No, they can't. And I don't know many people from the 70s or the 80s that could.
Bro, I got my Pauls to the wall right now.
Pauls to the wall.
Pauls to the wall. I got it. I have what's left to say about Paul Stanley. We're waiting for your response back. We want you on here, Paul Stanley.
Yeah, come on, Paul.
Come on, Paul.
We talk about you every episode. You're a friend of the show, just like Chris Jericho. By the way, Chris, thank you.
We're coming.
Yeah, thank you for being a friend of the show.
We're coming for you.
Well, do you want to tell everybody who my number one is?
Your number one pick is Chris Jericho.
Absolutely.
No. It is Chazz Stanley, Chazz ABAO. No, it is Seabass.
It is Sebastian Bach. The ultimate frontman from the 80s, I think. And early 90s, because they broke late.
It's more like early 90s. Yeah.
More like, yeah. But I think Sebastian Bach, first of all, his vocal range is untouchable. Let's just throw that out there right now.
I mean, Michael Sweet's there. Those two are probably the
I don't know.
highest.
Sebastian has more attitude in it, and that's why I side with Sebastian on that one. Not so much because they can't hit the same notes.
He doesn't have songs that sound like sticks.
Right.
So
exactly.
There's that.
Sebastian's power ballads are still heavy power ballads. But he's got a great range. He's got that attitude. He was a great frontman. Not like Paul Stanley. He doesn't play an instrument or anything like that. But he just had that pissed off, this is fucking rock and roll. And he still has that. Mm. And he still has good range. And he still is all about the fucking rock and roll. And I don't know. He just, the guy is always going to be my favorite singer no matter what. No matter what.
And he picks fights with friends of the show, Chris Jericho.
He does. He does pick fights. He picked fights with a lot of people, to be honest with you. But, also friend of the show, Dee Snider, picks fights with a lot of people, too.
That's what I was going to say. Dee Snider, you said he might be the ultimate 80s frontman being Seabass. I'm like, Dee Snider might have a...
So, Dee Snider is the rock and roll attitude, personified.
How about this? Dee Snider is Sebastian Bach just 10 years earlier.
Okay, yeah, I like that. You know what I
mean? So Sebastian did improve on a lot of it.
He did, but I don't know, I don't think... As our listeners would know, because, we talked about Twisted Sister before and Dee before, and then Dee was on. But Twisted Sister grew on me from when I originally was listening to them. I liked the hits. And then when we did the breakdown of the hair metal, I was like, I don't know, it just wasn't hitting. And then I started just listening to Dee by himself, and something clicked, and I got it. It was like his attitude. I almost felt like they were trying too hard when they were in Twisted Sister, and it wasn't resonating with me. And then I realized that they weren't trying too hard, is they came first.
They were building
and that was Dee.
Yeah.
And I don't think the band, and I still think this, I don't think the band could keep up with him.
The band's solid,
but
too.
they are. I'm not saying that they're not a great
He's
band.
He's bigger than the band. He's proved
yes,
it.
But I think then his persona was too big for the other guys, and it kind of showed. And like his new album, Leave a Scar, and you heard, that when we played some of those clips, is really fucking heavy and it's intense, and he's still that guy, and he's still like. So I know we're talking about Sebastian Bach, but we just went off on a tangent about Dee Snider. But you're right.
If Sebastian came on the show, we would talk about him more.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. I've been trying to get Sebastian on the show. But I mean, Sebastian, I do think that when I think of like the ultimate frontman to me, I do think of Sebastian Bach.
But the point I was getting at, why we were talking about Dee, is Dee did it all first 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. But Sebastian refined it. And like he was just 10 years later, Sebastian is a better vocalist.
Yep.
He, no offense, Dee, he's more handsome.
He didn't care who he pissed off.
Yeah.
He looked cool. Like when Bach walked into a room, you were like, that guy's somebody.
Right.
Like you just knew. And then he opened up his mouth and started singing and you were like, holy shit. Or he opened up his mouth and pissed you the fuck off. Right. And you were like, holy shit. You know what I mean?
He was a big rock star. He was. Another one that came late that should have been Guns N' Roses.
But look at the career he ended up having, even though, they got shut down early because of the whole grunge movement. Like, dude goes to Broadway. He's Jesus Christ Superstar. He's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He pumps out solo albums that are killer. He's still on tour. Like, the dude didn't have a bad career.
No.
Like, whereas, like, where we talked about Mike Tramp coming late, he literally disappeared for a while, and then all of a sudden he was just pissing out solo albums like nothing. But Sebastian Bach's following was still, like, there.
Here's my problem with Sebastian Bach. He has delusions of grandeur a little bit, where he thinks that once he gets his $1 billion to reunite Skid Row, they're going to sell out stadiums. He thinks that. How he would do that, Sebastian? If you were the third act on the Poison tour.
Okay, so you took the words out of my mouth.
Or the fourth act.
The fourth act.
Maybe Poison's bigger, but because of the reunion, maybe Skid Row would be bigger than Poison. Just because of the reunion. But you're not doing anything like that.
I would love to see them reunite. Do I think that Skid Row... I think Skid Row would benefit from that more than Sebastian. Because I think Sebastian's already doing pretty good. I think if...
I think that's what Sebastian thinks, and it's just not true. Because who's going to sell more tickets?
Well, no,
Sebastian
Skid Row
Bach?
for sure.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, like,
I meant Sebastian with Skid Row.
Yes.
Will sell more tickets than either of them.
Oh, for sure. It would help them both, but I think Sebastian's career in general has been better than Skid Row since he left.
Sure.
As a person...
I mean, like, it's arguable, really, because Skid Row didn't do much.
Well, I'll tell you, they pumped out a bunch of albums with, like, Johnny Solinger, rest in peace,
really
who just passed away.
Yeah,
and, like, other, singers after that, and they have a new singer currently. But, when Thick Skin came out, the first album after Sebastian left that had new songs on it, I liked it.
It was good.
I thought it was a great album.
Yeah.
Now, they lost me after that, because then things started taking a turn. But, like, that Thick Skin album gave, I think, if I was Sebastian, would be like, fuck, they're still doing great music.
Right.
But then after that,
Yeah. But that's my only issue I have with Sebastian. He thinks, like, them getting back together will be as big as Guns N' Roses. And as much as I love Skid Row more than Guns N' Roses, I'm not delusional.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right, though. I think they could have been another one of those bands that was bigger had they had more time.
Yeah.
There was no doubt in anybody's mind in the 80s and early 90s that Sebastian was a great singer.
No.
From even when he was in Madam X, people were like, that guy's a rock star.
But fortunately, like, people said Nirvana killed him. But it wasn't just that. It went from high soaring vocals to, like, people sounding like Eddie Vedder.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It just ain't gonna work.
Exactly. And it went from flashy stage clothes to fucking flannel and jean shorts.
Right. And it just ain't gonna work.
No.
Whereas the less glammy look was pulled off by Seabass.
Yes.
It really was. Just like with Janie.
Yes.
The less glammy look was pulled off. Some people couldn't do that.
Right.
Some people could not pull off. Like, can you think of what David Coverdale looked like in the 90s?
No.
He looked like the 80s.
I mean, even somebody like Tom Kiefer, he looked better in the 80s glam.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like when Poison stopped doing the glam look, they looked good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when Motley Crue just looked like a bunch of bikers, they looked good.
Yeah.
But like some of those bands lost their, for lack of a better term, gimmick when the style died.
Well, and it is true that you say that, because if you think about, we're talking about the 80s, and this is the 80s, if you think about Kiss, always these Kiss marks. If you think about Gene Simmons in the 80s, his output wasn't there because his look wasn't there.
Right.
Once they took the makeup off, he lost that persona.
Yes.
Till the 90s, and he kind of figured it out again.
Yes.
So it's just like, he was lost. Gene Simmons looked like an ugly person dressed like a woman in the 80s. Like, he had nothing going on. Like,
Yeah, no, I agree.
He really did. Like, Paul Stanley looked great. Bruce pulled it off. Eric pulled it off.
Yeah.
Gene looked like he belonged on the Golden Girls.
Right.
Kind of.
Right, yeah.
So he lost his mojo.
Well, I mean, since we're going off on these tangents, we already mentioned some of the honorable mentions that I was going to talk about, but I'm sure you have a couple. I was going to say Steven Tyler and Dee Snider.
Yeah, Steven Tyler, Dee Snider. Like, as much as I love Steven Tyler's voice, it just these other guys do it for me more.
Yeah, for sure.
Simply. And then the
Bruce Dickinson?
Oh, God. That's the one. That's the one that could have been fifth. Yeah, that's the one that could have been fifth.
Yeah.
For me. It could have been, but, you ask me next week, who knows?
Yeah.
And Iron Maiden, there's a new Iron Maiden coming out, by the way.
Is it really?
They have not wrote a bad album since, 1995.
Yeah.
Like, they've just been on fire. Ever since he came back in 2000, everything is gold, man.
I think we might have to do a Front Women
Sure.
show. We can do 5.
Yeah.
I can think of 5 off the top of my head.
Might be close to the same 5. Who knows?
Yeah.
And that's just unfortunate because there isn't as many. I mean, it's not a...
No, I don't think we'll have...
There's a lot, but there isn't as many.
Yeah,
right?
I think we'll
That's
have
the
like
thing.
1 or 2 that might be the same.
Yeah, maybe.
But I don't know. I think we both had pretty solid lists, and they're all great frontmen for their own reasons.
Now, what about one of your favorite singers that's not in the rock realm?
Which one? Are you just asking me in general?
You.
It depends.
Country music superstar Eric Van Houten.
Always.
I just give a shout out. Mike Burns, he sings in the shower.
He does. He sings in my shower.
Yes, he sings "Feed My."
That could be an honorable mention, by the way. Alice Cooper.
Coop's great.
As far as a non-rock singer, frontman.
Here's one for me because I already thought about it. You're coming up with it, and I don't care. I've got no fucks to give. Justin Timberlake.
He popped into my head immediately when you said that because his range is incredible.
He's got a...
I was trying to think of somebody in a band because frontman, he's just kind of a solo singer.
But he's a showman.
Oh, he's fantastic showman.
That's what I mean.
For sure.
So Justin Timberlake, I think, might be my favorite non-rock realm. A non-rock realm. It's just like people would be like, you listen to Justin Timberlake? I do.
I think a couple names that popped into my head are friend of the show, Tyler Hilton.
Yeah, I figured that would be there.
Yep. Johnny Resnick from the Goo Goo Dolls. Seen them a bunch of times, and he's a great frontman, good stage rap, good songwriter. I guess they're in the soft rock realm, but it's still...
What do I call it?
Mom rock.
Mom rock.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mom rock. As far as that, though, I mean, I can't really think of others.
Who's got a good voice that people never... And a fantastic showman, because I've seen it. It's Garth Brooks.
I've never seen him.
Oh, my goodness.
Never
that
seen
guy
him.
puts on a show. You get your money worth, and they're expensive tickets.
All of our listeners are turning off.
I turn off a lot of people. Mostly women.
Mostly.
Mostly.
Couple guys.
Mostly.
Well, I think that wraps up today's show. We've been rambling at you guys for like an hour. But if there's anybody we talked about that you don't know, or maybe you know but never actually saw them perform, YouTube's a beautiful thing.
You're right.
Just saying. Check these guys out.
And if you want to yell at me for my takes, that's Chazz, ABAO on Twitter.
There you go. Tell him that you don't like his takes and that, maybe Bruce Dickinson should have been in his list.
Maybe he should have. No, why do you have this metal music? Only good music came out in the 80s.
Honorable mention, Ozzy.
Of course, Ozzy's got... no, a lot of people don't say Ozzy's got a great voice, but that guy's got a very, unique voice.
Yes.
And it's hard to... You know who the new modern-day Ozzy is?
Me.
Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho.
He is. He really is the modern-day Ozzy.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
Oh, Chris, thank you for sending us another basket of, fruit and with bubbly in it. That was very nice of you.
Looking forward to hopefully seeing Fozzy if things stay okay.
Yeah, the Foz.
We never know with, shutdowns and COVID, so as of now, we're scheduled to see friend of the show, Chris Jericho and Fozzy, so that's exciting, hopefully.
Well, I think on that note, we're going to wrap this thing up, and we thank you guys for listening to the All Bets Are Off podcast once again, and this was a lot of fun, and it was kind of just thrown out last minute.
Right, we've got some other stuff in the works, or it already happened. There was a scheduling conflict today with 2 of our guests, so we decided to record this, so we don't know what you're going to hear first. But Paul Stanley, get back to us.
I know. So it was supposed to be Paul Stanley, Chris Jericho, and Sebastian Bach.
We're going to just list on this, and they weren't going to be allowed to pick each other. It was just the whole thing.
It was the whole thing, and then we were all on the Zoom call, and they got into an argument, and it was...
Paul Stanley's 70. He's like, is this on?
Right. And then Sebastian Bach looked at Chris and was like, I'm still a better singer than you.
It was wild.
Yeah. So we just shut it off and we did this.
Did I just shit on Paul Stanley?
A little.
At me, bro.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us for another week, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.